It's Cardboard Time, episode number 103, and I'm your host, Arwen Kathke. On today's episode, we have reviews of Landmarks and Aqua, a quick look back at my 2024 resolutions, and a little bit of a look forward to my resolutions from 2025. So if you are listening to this on its release date, I am very panicked and packing up and heading off to OrcaCon in Seattle, Washington for this weekend. If you are in the Pacific Northwest and you are listening to this close to the release date, I will be at OrcaCon the full time from January 10th to January 12th. A few workshops that I'm going to be in, some panels, and my first ever live podcast recording with OFPG. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think it's going to be a great weekend and gonna hopefully get to play some games out there as well. We'll talk about that in a minute, and just looking forward to seeing everybody else out there. I am staying a little bit later. I'm hanging out with Carla Kopp from Weird Giraffe Games, and we are going to kind of see the sights around Seattle and go hang out with some folks, hopefully get some good food and have some good conversation while we're out there. So let's talk about the Shelf of Aspiration, the first update of the new year. It is at 123. That is down by 4 since we last talked. 3 incoming games, the first being Herbaceous Pocket. This was the only game that I wound up picking up for the holidays, so I'm very proud of myself. I was very restrained, and this was one that Allie did buy for me while we were at PAX Unplugged, and she kept that a secret, so it was a nice little gift for me underneath the Christmas tree. So I'm excited to get that one out. It seems pretty straightforward. Oh My Pigeons was a game that came in during the holidays. This was one that I pre-ordered at PAX Unplugged. And basically the story behind that was if you wanted to use this crane machine, which had a bunch of stuffed pigeons in it, you had to buy the game. And I think the game was like $17 or something like that. So I said, you know what, I'll just buy it because I want the pigeon. And hopefully the game's decent, which will. And then Clank Legacy 2 did come in from crowdfunding. I have to finish the first Clank Legacy first before I open that up. But there were a bunch of goodies that came along with that. Very much looking forward to playing that as soon as the first one gets done. So 7 games I played over the holidays. Not a huge amount like during the holidays themselves, but New Year's, especially New Year's night, I did get some stuff to the table. So the first one was Aqua, which I will be reviewing during the review section of the podcast today. Tattoo Stories was a lot of fun. This was a game that we played at our friend Matt and Lori's. Jordan and Bernie, our friends, also came over as well, and we all hung out and played some lighter games. So Tattoo Stories was one of those lighter games that got out. Scattergories was another game that we wound up playing at that game night, and this was one that Jordan insisted that I check out. This was on the Shelf of Aspiration for me, and it was a lot harder than I thought. I was very surprised by the fact that it was this difficult to think of these words that are starting with a specific letter, and then fit these different categories. I thought that was an interesting game. Probably not going to be one that hits the table a huge amount, but definitely appreciated it, and it's staying on my shelves for the time being. I thought it was a lot of fun and definitely has some staying power. I've got the big red box version of it from like the 80s or the 90s. And yeah, enjoyed it a lot more than I thought that I was going to. So Scattergories was a hit for us. And then Abduction, I did get to play solo. I am going to hold off on reviewing this game until I have a chance to play it with multiple people. But so far, a fun little spatial puzzle element that's going on to it. The table presence is really cute, and looking forward to playing this with some more people. Lemon Game is another game. I did get a review copy of that at PAX Unplugged. We did get to play it 2 players so far, and we had a lot of fun with it. I do want to see what it plays like at the full player count. I think it is going to be a little bit better at the full player count. So, very interested to see that, but we definitely had some fun with that. Shogun is another game that we have played on Board Game Arena, and I have to say, maybe it was the Board Game Arena implementation of it, but I wasn't super impressed with it. I will be playing this on the table in some form, whether it's Shogun, whether it's Wallenstein. One of those two, I believe that they're roughly the same. It's just a matter of location. But yeah, I was surprised that it didn't really hit with me all that much. I thought that was going to be a little bit more fun. Could have been the asymmetrical play on Board Game Arena. I'm not quite sure, but I will be, deciding after I do get this out to the table in earnest. And then finally, Oh My Pigeons, I did get to the table, and I do have a little short review of this. I didn't want to put it on my big review list because this is going to be super quick. It had some fun artwork, and the details on the player benches, I will say that they did a really good job with the cards, making them fun. But the gameplay did not do it for me at all. There was way too little player agency. It was incredibly random. You could win within 2 turns and not really have any way to stop a player from winning. I think that this one will likely find a new home soon, unless Allie really wants to keep it around. It was worth it for the pigeon plushie. I'm kind of sad because I thought that the production was good on this. But unfortunately, the gameplay just wasn't for us. And, might be a little bit more suited towards the younger set, the more, family-oriented set that can handle more of that randomness and more of that just straight-up goofy, don't care who wins or loses kind of gameplay. I just felt a little cheated, by this one. So fortunately, it wasn't that expensive. I will be able to rehome this with somebody that will give it a little bit better home. So yeah, that was the Shelf of Aspiration update. So the first review that I did want to talk about was a game called Landmarks. This is from 2 to 10 players in 20 minutes, designed by Rodrigo Rego and Danilo Valente, and the art was by Aaron Ng, and this was published by Floodgate Games. Landmarks is a word game of hidden paths and clever clues. Your party is lost deep in an island jungle, relying on you to guide them to safety and treasure. In this jungle, every word matters. Use strategic wordplay to send a chain of one-word clues. The connections between them will create a path leading to fortune and glory. So this was a review copy furnished by Floodgate, so thank you to Floodgate Games for the opportunity to check this out. I caught a quick demo of this at the Floodgate booth while I had my meeting with them at PAX Unplugged. This was the one that really stood out to me most out of the options that they had, and did want to explore it a little bit more. To kind of give a little bit more background into this, basically one player is going to try to guide the rest of their team using the connection between hexes of words that are already on the map and new hexes that the team then has to place one at a time on a open hex adjacent to one or more occupied hexes that have words on them. So you basically have these hexes that are out that have these different words, and you're trying as a team to place a new word in correspondence in a hex adjacent to one or more of those. So it may fit just one, it may fit multiple, where you can slot it into 2 or potentially 3. So that is kind of what you're doing in this game. In the long and short of things, there is a lot of connections to code names that can be drawn here with word relationships. And I think this game is enough to stand on its own, specifically in the realm of trying to think ahead and maybe some of the more long-term implications that the hexes that you place out are going to have on how you can give clues to your team. And I think that this is where it is maybe a little bit tougher or a little bit trickier than what code names would be. I would say that the decisions that you make in Codenames in general don't linger from round to round. For those of you who have played Codenames, you might have, a clue that your team didn't necessarily get completely right, and you may have some leftovers that they can go and then pick up. But in this, every single tile that you place then is permanently out on the board. And it has implications on, okay, where is the team going to place the next tile? Well, it could, relate to this word that's here. And it could also relate to this other word that's here that maybe you don't want it to relate, and you want your team to not think that it relates. So I found that really fascinating. I thought that that was interesting. And really, the decisions that you make from your very first clue could make it easier or harder to direct your team to their next tile. And that could possibly completely eliminate the possibility of you having a really good clue later because of that relationship. So you're trying, again, in this, you're trying to avoid traps and try to lead your teammates to the good tiles. And, that's where this gets really tricky. So I did appreciate the two sides of the cloth playmat. They did have different levels of detail on them. One was a much cleaner experience, and the other one appeared more like an actual island jungle. And surprisingly, I preferred the more detailed one. Usually I do prefer that cleaner, more easy to see visual experience. This was kind of the opposite of that. This gave it a little bit more flavor. It made it a little bit more fun for me anyways. But I did like the fact that there were two different options and you could choose. It didn't affect the gameplay at all. The rules were pretty straightforward, considering that I learned from the rules in the box. Along with the short demo, I didn't watch any rules videos. I thought that the rules did a very good job at explaining what this game did very quickly. There is a Rodney Smith video on Floodgate's website for those who prefer that approach, but I was very easily able to learn this from the rules themselves, so good job there. This can also be played in teams if you do want to be competitive. I felt that the more satisfying way to play this was cooperatively, for me anyways. The competitive version of it was fine, but it is something that I felt a little bit better about playing this. You don't have that team dynamic where you have to balance the teams and maybe one team's better than the other inherently at word games and stuff like that. So it's there if you want it, but for us, the cooperative version was a little bit more superior. This also kind of fits that late night convention game bill very well. A couple of years ago, there were a lot of really good offerings that came out all at once. You had Just One, you had Codenames, you had Green Team Wins, Everything Ever. I think that this kind of goes in that line of really good late night convention games. So, this does have a little bit of meat on it, but it's not too complex to teach to newcomers. And you do walk away from the table feeling good, having that cooperative experience as well. From a color vision perspective, no issues with this whatsoever. Everything on the map was denoted through both color and symbology for the clue giver. And then for the rest of the team, there was nothing that they really had to worry about as far as that goes. So really well done there as well. So for my final thoughts, if you're a bit tired of code names and you're looking for something that I feel is kind of a new, fresher take on the word association genre, I think that Landmarks does fill that bill nicely. It does fill that late night convention game bill very nicely. This is one that I will probably stick in my bag if nobody is going to do that already for OrcaCon, because I do feel like that, 2 to 10 player count does accommodate for those really quick games that you're trying to wait on somebody or you're winding down. It's just something that you can get out very quickly and have some fun. Good setup, and definitely staying on my shelves. That is Landmarks. The other game that I wanted to talk about today was Aqua. This plays two players from 15 to 20 minutes, designed by Tate Wu. The art is also by Tate Wu, and this was published by Sunrise Tornado Game Studio. You and your fellow player are curators who want to create the best setup for a new water-themed exhibit at your art museum. One of you believes very strongly in the power of vertical alignment, while the other argues that the focus should be on horizontal structure. You each take turns placing the paintings in the exhibit, and once you're finished, you earn presentation points for the horizontal or vertical groupings of the artwork. When the exhibition ends, the curator with the most points wins. In more detail, in Aqua, players take turns placing painting cards in the museum, with cards being placed face down when they're adjacent to face up cards, and vice versa. When a face down card is surrounded, you flip it face up. When someone plays a face up boat, each player moves a visitor token to up to three spaces from that card, with each visitor token adding 1 point to the card on which it stands. Players score points by strategically aligning cards with matching icons and numbers in each row or column, with one player scoring the columns at game's end and the other scoring the rows. The trick is that these lines only score if they're valued from 10 to 20 points, so don't concentrate too much artistic power in one line. This was a review copy furnished by Sunrise Tornado, so thank you to Tate for considering me for this review. I do like Tate's games in general, so I was excited to try this out. I think that Fork is still one of the best trick-taking games from a elementary, scale. It's super cute, and being able to teach it so easily, I thought that it was really well done. So I was excited to try this out and see what Aqua was about. And this, to me, is not necessarily for the same audience. I think that this is a little bit more complex than a game like Fork is going to be. It is kind of deceptive from the fact that this is a very small box. It's basically just a tuck box the size of a deck of cards with a few cubes, and that's pretty much it. And there really was a lot more complexity, and I think the complexity kind of comes down to a couple of things. The rule book, when I first opened it and I took a look and I saw, okay, well, there's examples here. I don't really know what these examples are doing. I read through, I looked at the examples, I read through again, I looked at the examples, and I said, okay, I think I've got enough of this. I'm going to go through and play it. And the thing that I wasn't really understanding right away was the fact that you had this 10 to 20 point scoring limitation, where if your row has less than 10 points, has more than 20 points, it doesn't score at all. And I think that it is really, really fascinating. I think that this is really where the fun of this game is the fact that you have this limitation and you're trying to navigate that with some of the information being hidden by the fact that your opponent has placed these cards down as well. So you don't know what's there. You know what the face-up cards are. You might remember what, the face-down cards that you placed are, but you don't know what your opponent placed face down. So I thought that was super interesting. I think that the other thing in play here is the fact that you are on a shared board. You are scoring either vertical or horizontal, and your opponent is scoring the other. So the cards that you're placing down are actually technically helping your opponent in a lot of cases. Sometimes it might not be. You might bust them out by putting a card, higher up in a line. And, basically, if they're scoring the vertical side of things, you place another one on a different row, but on a vertical axis, and that winds up busting them out. So I think there's a lot of fun decisions to be made here. This does play very quick, We wanted to play it again right away. The first time I didn't get to do that because we were running out of time, but the second time I did, we got to play that twice. And then, the other comment that I have about this is, it really was the kind of game that I think you need to play a practice round of it with people first for them to really wrap their heads around it. It's not terribly complex in what you're doing because you're, just basically playing a card, taking a card, and then, if you have one of the boat cards, you're going and moving some cubes, and that's pretty much it. And then you just go and score. But it's kind of how you do that and the way that you're doing that and, the face down cards going next to the face up cards, that does take a little bit of time for people to get used to. So I thought that it was fascinating. From a color vision perspective, there were no issues. Everything was handled very well through symbology, so no issues there whatsoever. The graphic design was perfectly serviceable enough. It did look like, these cards were out of an art gallery. So you're hanging up these paintings and, basically saying, nope, this is going over here. This one's going over here. And yeah, you score at the end. You don't quite know what your opponent's going to get. You don't know what you're going to get. And I did find that, super interesting. I think that there's a lot to like here, but it is a little bit more complex to me, from that scoring condition mechanic than, some other small box games that I've played. So for my final thoughts, this is a very solid small box experience. I would recommend this to somebody who wants a little bit of a thinkier small box game. This one's absolutely sticking around on the shelves. I had a lot of fun with it. I think for the more experienced people who play board games in your life, this is a great opportunity to give them something that they can carry with them. Plays in, again, 15 to 20 minutes and is going to be a nice, super small, super portable experience that they're going to have a nice full game experience in a short amount of time. So this one's definitely sticking around on my shelves. Tay has, gone and produced a game that has exceeded my expectations again. And, that is Aqua. So let's talk about those New Year's resolutions. And I wanted to start by talking about last year's resolutions. It was great to have those at my fingertips and at least my notes. This is what I went off of. I didn't go back and listen to the episode, so hopefully I didn't say anything that wasn't in my notes, but at least in my notes, I started the year off at 154 games on my shelf of aspiration, and apparently I wanted to be at 130 or less. For some reason, I remember saying 100, and that's kind of why I was a little bit panicked at the end. I was hoping to get down as low as possible. I really did want to be down to 120 or less, not looking back at that statement. That was kind of my goal. Once I started getting into October, I said, okay, realistically, I could probably be at 120 or less. And unfortunately, I ended the year at 127, but that was less than 130. So in January, past me was happy about this. So I think that it was good progress, especially from starting the year at 154. Being down to 127, I think is a pretty good goal. And, it's something that I should be happy with. It's something that I am happy with. Just something that towards the end of the year, I thought that maybe I would be down a little bit more, but I'm getting there. So 5 games I said that I wanted to be sure to play. The first one being Crystal Palace. I did play that. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I'm not sure when it's getting back to the table. I thought that it was a very solid dice placement game, but it's super heavy and it's super complex and involved a lot of setup. So I'm not exactly sure when it's getting back out again. It's going to need some dedicated time. But I'm interested to try it again. It's not going anywhere in my collection. But that was one that I did get out. But Toku, I did also get out. Enjoyed it. Thought that it was a very good dice placement game. Not as good as Apiary. I thought that Apiary was kind of one of my favorite dice quote unquote placement games, if you want to call it that. I think that I would qualify it as such, that dice worker placement aspect to it. But Bitoku I thought was really good as well. I enjoyed it, again, just not as much as Apiary. So that got out to the table. And then Kanban EV, I got to play. I really enjoyed that. It was one of my top games of the year. I had a ton of fun with that, but that is going to be in the same vein of, hey, I don't know when I'm going to get this out. It is a heavier game. It is going to be a beast to try to teach to other players, as most Laceradas are. So, yeah, definitely interested in playing that again at some point. It's just going to be a matter of when can I schedule it. So it's kind of a recurring theme, like these games I really want to play. I have to schedule time out for them. I have to make sure that I'm able to play them. So the two games that didn't get out to the table were Eclipse and Battlestar Galactica. I unfortunately did not get to play those. So, those are going to get rolled over to 2025, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So for 2025, I am saying that this is a year that I'm going to get to 100 or less, and I think that that's achievable. Right now, it's only, 24 away, if I remember correctly, and I was doing my math. 24, 23 away. I think that that is manageable, with the incoming games. There's definitely more that are coming in from packs that are being shipped in. But I think that I can get there, and I think that it's a realistic goal. And hopefully if I, kind of stay at this rate of 20 games, 25 games a year, maybe by 2030 I can finally get to 0. Maybe we'll put a little bit more effort in there. We'll see. But the 5 games that I do want to be sure to play this year, again, I mentioned Eclipse. Battlestar Galactica hopefully is happening January 10th while I'm out in Seattle. Somebody is scheduling a game of that, and I'm hoping that we have enough people to play. I think that we do at this point. So I'm really fascinated and really looking forward to that. I'm going to watch a couple rules videos to make sure that I, at the very least, am brushed up on Battlestar Galactica. So looking forward to getting that one off the list. Dead Reckoning is another game. I got that in last year, and it's another game that is, a huge table presence. I don't want to take it on solo right away. I think that for a learning game, playing it solo is going to be definitely tough. I have gotten away from the solo learning games because it does add a level of complexity on top of getting just the base game out to the table usually. So I'm trying to, get that multiplayer experience in first and then do more plays solo and trying to dive deeper into the experience. So Wasteland Express Delivery Service is another one. This one's been sitting around for years. I know that I have had this probably since 2019 at the very least, and it's just kind of evaded. Anytime we have a game day, it's been talked about, and we just wind up playing something else. And this is going to be the year, hopefully, that changes. I'm looking forward to trying that one out as well. And then finally, Weather Machine is going to be my yearly Lacerda. It is the last one on my shelf currently that I have not played. I don't have Lisboa. I don't have a couple of his other games. The new ones that are coming out, I did not purchase because I wanted to make sure that I got through my existing ones already first. So Weather Machine is going to round up those 5 games. In addition to that, I have a couple of review copies I am still backlogged on. Arcs is definitely one that I would probably almost put over all of those, but I want to make sure that I have the right play group to play that with. So, Arcs is definitely at the top of the list. It's just a matter of getting it to the table. So hopefully very soon, hopefully I can get done while I'm out in Seattle. That would be great, and get some more plays when I come back and can teach it and can understand it a little bit better. So those are my resolutions for 2025. I think they're achievable. I think that I'm able to get them out to the table, hopefully with some friends, and we'll get there. So I'm feeling good about this. I'm feeling good about the 100 or less. I've been doing a lot better at that. So hopefully, let's see what the year brings. But I think that's going to do it for us today. A little bit of a shorter episode, but I am trying to get ready for that trip out to Seattle, which is going to be great, and really looking forward to spending some time out there, not only at the convention, but afterwards as well with some good friends. So if you want to learn more about Cardboard Time, you can always go to the website. My Instagram and Blue Sky is at Cardboard Time. My Discord is on the Tabletop Express server, so you can go to that website for an invite, or you can always email me at cardboardtime@gmail.com, or you can also send me any questions, suggestions, or ideas for discussion topics. That line of communication is always open. And as always, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you around the table in 2 weeks for another episode of Cardboard Time.